voice vote on this? Board Member Hill?
Yes.
Councilmember Gaza?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. We have nothing under old business today. Then our first item under new business will be item D1.
Under old business, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I saw on the minutes that there was a possible joint event between the city and the school district. Has anything been planned or talked about, or?
If memory serves me correctly, we had discussed an event over the summertime, the Ash Street Community Barbecue. If that qualified as a joint event in committee member Nguyen's mind, I think she indicated yes, and so we did collaborate over the summer in, I guess, the tail end of July at Ash Street Park.
Okay. It'd be nice to have another event where it's a joint effort. Okay. Thank you. I missed the whole summer.
Glad that you're back.
Yeah.
So then under new business, we've got item D1. How children are getting to school. So you have a presentation on that?
Yes. I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jose Quintana. I don't know if you met Jose. Jose is our new Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and serves as our CBO here at the school district, so happy to have him on board. And Jose, if you're ready to get started.
Absolutely, thank you. So here at Newark Unified School District, we do have transportation department, and we do abide to the California Home to School Transportation Program. This program provides funding for school districts and county office of education for transportation services. And currently, to qualify for this type of funding, the school district must develop a plan that prioritizes low-income students and those in transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. The plan must also describe how the district will use transportation services to benefit students with disabilities. Currently, our funding, this program is reimbursed up to 60% of transportation costs, including fuel, new buses, and technology. It also includes cost of living adjustments, which is our COLA. I don't have control of that there.
I can use the emphasis.
Yes, so.
I just want to make sure that there's slides that we get slides.
Oh, absolutely, they're right on there. So going back to the program being funded for districts and county office for education for transportation services, the next slide would have on there the qualifications for school districts and county offices to prioritize low-income students and those in TK through 6th grade. The plan must describe how a district will use transportation services to benefit students with disabilities. I think that's the majority of emphasis here at Newark Unified. The next slide provides funding. 60% of the transportation costs are reimbursed, the other 40% through the general fund, but the 60% includes fuel, new buses, and technology, which is included in the COLA, or cost of living adjustments. The next slide talks about basically where this was implemented, Assembly Bill 181 and amended by Assembly Bill 185. We currently at our district have 2 clean energy buses, 64 students in each bus, that is the capacity, and 2 electrical buses with 64 students in each bus, with a total of 256 students that can be mobilized at any given time. The unfortunate part about this, we don't have any transportation bus drivers. We finally just acquired one that is doing local transportations as needed, but most of our services are being contracted through vendors, specifically for special ed transportation, and those are the home to school transport students in the special ed programs.
Can we ask questions?
Absolutely.
So we have buses, but we don't have bus drivers.
Correct.
So our buses are just sitting there.
Correct. We finally have a licensed bus driver who's doing local runs, so we do have one.
They should be for field trips. So most of our students actually, walk to school for the most part here at Newark Unified School District, and then buses are used typically for special events and for day type field trips.
So like when the high high school, they go play games, you know, football games, do they get bused or
Yes, they do, and those are vendors that we have contracts with, purchase orders, right?
contract? But they use their own buses, not ours.
Correct, they don't use our buses. Usually if they're chartered, they use the vendors' buses, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, absolutely.
Can I make a comment? I know that at the school district where I teach, there is a longstanding partnership between the city of Cupertino and our district around exploring transportation for students and looking at all sorts of different options and how do kids get to school, and there's surveys and things like that. And if people are interested, I'd be happy to try to make introductions to the right people if we wanted to benchmark and look at similar things for our district.
Absolutely, I can answer to that. Any contacts you might have that we can partner up with any LEAs in the area? Absolutely. Transportation is part of business services, so yeah, I've been more than open to it.
Okay, great.
Here on kind of under the subheading of how children are getting to school is more on the walking and biking side. Is kind of where are they at, you know, what kind of, you know, from the city's infrastructure point of view, where do we need to be making improvements, you know, what's working, what's not, you know, where are the bottle-ups. So do we have any sense of that, like, you know, what's the percentage of kids walking to school, percentage of kids biking to school? Imagine the overwhelming majority are being driven to school. You know, where are we looking at just, you know, as we start looking to make, you know, different safety upgrades to some of the infrastructure, kind of, do you have a sense as the district where we should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I don't have the numbers as far as the percentage of our students, but being that most of them are elementary schools, they are being driven to these school sites. But typically, a school district would have a partnership with transportation authority, whether it be county or city, that I'm looking into actually having those conversations with them and saying, hey, what can we do to facilitate access to our school sites? Bus passes, routes that we can take, kind of just awareness in the community for our students to have that access to our school sites. So that's something we're planning on having a conversation with our local transportation authorities. So I have a great sense of this. I'm used to working with transportation authorities in most counties, so we would be happy to report in our future meetings.
I do go pick up my grandson over at Kennedy, and I see their bike racks full. You know, I see the little kids pick up their bikes, and they have bike racks on both sides of the school. So there's quite a few kids that do bike themselves to school. It's nice to see that.
Absolutely, yes, and that's something that I will follow up on, and what that percentage looks like. It's a great question.
Although, you know, we are seeing full bike racks, that is something that we're going to need to look at when we do our active transportation plan, looking, you know, specifically at, you know, a 7-year-old biking to school has very different transportation needs than, you know, other cyclists. And that's something that, you know, if, you know, what we're seeing can be borne out in the data, that's something that we're going to need to look at to make sure that, you know, we're making that trip as safe as we can.
I think that's definitely looking at those routes for our school sites, where the pressure points might be at, what intersections are the most busiest. So, yeah, I think that's something that we can have mapped out, that maybe get some assistance within the city or partnership of some sort.
Obviously in the past, and so that's something just to be aware of, because they do get some momentum going. And so making sure that, you know, students are aware of what the regulations.
Yeah, my guess would be that would be happening more with high school students.
Junior high.
Junior high as well.
This morning, I came across one on Lafayette as I was coming to work. It was like a little past 7. He was going to the junior high, and I was kind of making room for him. I want to make sure he was safe.
And I think that's a safety concern, right? Because these e-bikes are at 20 plus miles an hour, and so those bring other safety concerns for conversation.
Because with the high school, if we're looking at most of the high schoolers, we would be looking more at Cedar Boulevard. How can we make improvements there. With the junior high, there's a few more ways to kind of ingress there. So something that we'll need to look at. But it would be good to have kind of data on, how many kids are walking and biking, and then, as we try to figure out what their needs are, so we can keep everyone safe.
Yeah, we kind of knew that this would open that dialogue to having those partnerships with our city transportation, county transportation authorities.
For enrollment, we are on item number D2.
Yes,
Public
thank you.
comment on D1 first. Yes. There's a public comment on D1.
Take that over.
No. I'm gonna, thank you, Member Jorgens, for running the meeting, and I appreciate you continuing this evening. Thank you.
Any public comment on item D1?
Don't everybody rush.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item D2, and I assume there will be a presentation on item D2 as well.
There is. D2 is on enrollment of our students and, looking at a little bit about our history in the past and where we've come from and where we're at today with our enrollment numbers. We thought it would be really telling. We just recently shared this with our Board of Education. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna Scoville, who is our coordinator of student services and personnel services.
This is on, right? Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna Scoville, and I'm the coordinator of Pupil Services. Today, we'll be reviewing our district's current enrollment data, which, as you know, and you'll see a pattern of decline enrollment over the recent years. California has seen a consistent decrease in public school enrollment, with the most recent data showing a decline of over 40,000 students in the 22-23 school year. The main contributors to this decline are decreasing birth rates, which result in smaller cohorts moving through the school system, and changes in migration patterns with more people leaving the state and the area than coming in, and families leaving the Bay Area as well because of the cost of living. As enrollment decreases, so does state funding allocated to school districts, potentially leading to budget cuts and program reductions. So let's begin by taking a look at the enrollment trends over the past several years. So we're going to start off with, actually, there's one prior to that. That one, thank you. So we're going to start off looking in the last 10 years where we're at. So as you can see, and I'm not going to go line by line, but school year 14-15, we were at 6,196 students. The following year, we were at 6,013 students. So most years, we were down about 2%. Right here in 17-18 school year is actually the only year that our number increased by 0.84%. And then again in 18-19 school year, we dropped another, once again, about 2.99%. Then in 19-20, as you all know, the pandemic hit. So that year we dropped 1.52. However, after the pandemic, next slide please, school year 2021, we dropped, 6%. I take that back. So from 2020, 2021, and the biggest drop was from 2021 to 2022. So that was a 6% drop. The other big drop was the year right after. It was a 4.16%. And then in 23-24 school year, we dropped 2.5%. Next. And our total enrollment as of last week is 4,669 students. Next slide, please. So when looking over the past 10 years, we lost 24.6%, about a fourth of our students. That's a huge number. So we were down 1,527 students, which is about a quarter of our students. And when we are looking at ADA, over the last years, again, once the pandemic hit, our ADA dropped as well. We're slowly going up, so this year we went up 1.2%. And we're working on increasing our attendance. Correct. Thank you. As we've seen, our district is facing a clear trend of declining enrollment, which brings both challenges and opportunities for growth. Addressing this trend will require a collaborative district-wide effort to strengthen our programs, enhance community engagement, and promote the unique benefits of our school and our school district. As we move forward, I encourage all of us to think creatively and collaboratively about ways to increase our district's appeal and to provide valuable input. Together, we can work towards stabilizing enrollment and securing a strong, vibrant future for our schools and community. Thank you again, and I welcome any final thoughts or questions.
Have any questions on this item? Anyone?
We love this. Send them our way.
Any questions? I guess just, one question from me then. We see declining enrollment across the Bay Area here. Isn't a Newark unified problem? In a way, it would be great if it was, and we could just say, hey, make different decisions here, and it would solve the problem. But it's not. It's certainly not a Newark unified problem. We're seeing it across the Bay Area. Are we seeing some cities that are, it's more of a sign, I guess, in my head, that, the Bay Area is becoming more and more unaffordable for families to live here? Are we seeing cities doing things, are there some districts that maybe have, they're seeing less declining enrollment because cities are doing X, Y, and Z? Or is it just, everyone's kind of in the dark trying to figure this one out?
Or how's Dublin? Because Dublin, their schools are growing.
They are growing, but they're also putting in a lot more new housing. So their farming community is changing drastically out there in that region. So that's really been like where the new growth is here in the region. So
And
they
when
are
we put in
seeing that.
housing, people complain because we're putting in more housing, there's more traffic.
Well, and I'm not anticipating Newark gaining the amount of land that Dublin had to work with when they started growing out. So I was just curious if there's, I don't know if there are, but if there are any success stories, like what's happening where families are able to live in those communities?
So I am not sure. I do have meetings every month with student services directors from Alameda County, and I think we're all seeing very similar situations. Although I did hear one of our last meetings, Dublin was kind of not as much, but I think they're starting to see a little bit of a drop. They are starting to see that. So I think it's statewide. Like I said, it's California in the 22-23 school year. They declined over 40,000 students in that statewide.
Districts in the state of California are declining. The area that you see growth tend to be more inland, or up in the high desert regions where they actually are growing and putting in more manufacturing in those directions. And so you're seeing more affordable housing out there. That's definitely the challenge right now for us here in the Bay Area. And obviously we're along with good company with other school districts as well.
And I do think, that's something that, it should be talked about here because it's, it's certainly not just a, school district problem, and, it's going to have to be something that we're going to need a full community solution on. So I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate you staying.
So we will move on to item D3 under new business, FAQ. I guess Measure LL and Measure O is that going to be separate or together?
You know what, we really just put it on here just in case there are any questions from the committee members that you might like to ask us about, that maybe if you had questions or if you've had someone that's come to you that's got questions on either measure, we wanted to be able to help filter that, but I realize all of you are very versed on both those issues.
So we can start discussion if you have questions here.
Actually, for our
Just so for our community, I know that maybe families in Newark and who are part of the school district aren't very versed in Measure LL versus Measure O. City Manager Benu, could you give us a little bit of an overview of LL? Thank you.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. It sounds like the microphone is on. Measure LL is a measure that was placed by the Newark City Council on this November ballot for voter consideration. The city currently has a hotel tax. Technically, it's a transient occupancy tax. And what it essentially does is it taxes those who are staying in our hotels at the rate of 10%. So for every dollar that a guest pays towards their hotel rate, that rate is 10%. They pay an additional 10% to the city as the hotel tax. This measure, if approved by voters, would increase the hotel tax from 10% to 14%. It's a general fund tax, general service tax, general hotel tax, meaning that the funds could be used for any legitimate government purpose. The funds would be received by the city's general fund, into the city's general fund, at the rate of approximately $2.1 million per year in additional revenue. Again, those are projections that we currently have at this point. The council has identified a whole host of needs that could potentially be used to fund, that could be funded by this revenue stream. There's a whole host of master plans that the city is currently pursuing and in various stages of development. In fact, at last week's council meeting, the council met and discussed the city's Parks Master Plan update for approximately 2 hours. There is also a facilities master plan that the council just recently approved. There's a serious need to replace the city's old fire stations. We currently have 3. 2 of them are very outdated. One was built in 1980, and that is actually in worse shape than the one that was built in 1966. These funds could be used for that purpose. The measure would require independent oversight. So like the city's current Measure GG that was used to fund the construction of the city's Civic Center, there is an independent committee that reviews all expenditures made under this measure, Measure GG as well as Measure LL, should that pass. And that independent committee would review those expenditures to ensure that they are done in compliance with all laws, the state law as well as the proposed text of the measure. Monies would be required to be spent locally here in Newark. Monies would not be allowed to be taken away by Sacramento. That is in it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you.
I'd like to make it clear that our residents will not be taxed on anything. It is strictly for people visiting and staying in our hotels.
That's correct. It's not a tax on any Newark residents or people who live here in our community. It's for people who are staying at hotels in Newark. Currently, there are 11 hotels in Newark. We have about 1,600 hotel rooms in our community, and those folks who come in and stay in those rooms would be subject to the tax. Also like to note that it did poll well. The city hired an independent third party to commission a public opinion poll earlier this year in the springtime, and that came back at 64% favorability.
Just a follow-up question. So for residents who choose a staycation at the hotels, are they subject to the tax?
I did ask that question many years ago when it was very, very hot. I elected to stay at a Newark hotel to take advantage of their amazing and totally awesome air conditioning. No, unfortunately, to have an exemption for Newark residents would potentially run afoul of some legal issues, and so the city attorney advised that we not make an exemption for Newark residents.
Thank you.
I feel like more of a stakeholder when you drive past that new building.
Just felt that it needed to be clarified, so thank you.
I actually have a question on Measure O. So I got a flyer in the mail about Measure O from the district, and one of the things that it mentioned was that it was going to be updating the 21st century learning environments. And I guess I'm a little embarrassed. I don't really know what that means. So if you could kind of talk through some of the changes that might happen in classrooms, that'll be really helpful for me, because I saw that.
Kind of wonder what that means. You know, I think for years and years and years, and you'll probably still see it for a while, that, our classrooms still look very traditional. They tend to have desks with normal, with just, basic seating, row seating for the most part. Some have gone to some tables that are primary grade levels. But, really, when you look at 21st century, you're now also blending not only books and materials, but you're also blending, many of the computer skills that have to come forward with it, right? And so with that is technology infrastructure that needs to happen. Also, as we shift into more hands-on learning with STEAM learning, to be able to work with that, those would be some of the areas that we'd want to help strengthen and make sure that our facilities are up to the standards that we would need to be able to offer those kinds of services and also be competitive with other surrounding school districts.
That's great to hear. Someone who went to Newark schools in the 21st century and felt like I was in 21st century classrooms at the time. It's good to hear that we're doing some good improvements there. I have the opportunity to do so.
To add to that, and it's not just technology or STEAM, but rather safety around the campuses, right? Fences that keep our students in and keeps intruders out, right? But also upgrading, some of our sites with HVAC systems, with anything with PA systems. We still have the overhead projectors that are being utilized where primary, secondary screens are used in most LEAs. So those are things to look at as well. So, I'll just add to it.
Thank you. Any other questions on either of these measures? If not, I will see if there are any questions in the public about either Measure LL or Measure O. All right, then we can move on to Agenda Item E, public comment on any non-agendized items. So if there's any member of the public who would like to speak on an item not listed on this evening's agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so.
Signal by, please.
Not all at once.
Seeing none, I guess we'll move on to Agenda Item F, which is future agenda items and requests for future discussion items. And I know, kind of given that it's our last meeting of the even-numbered year, that might mean that none of us are going to be here at the next meeting. But if there are any items that you think are going to be valuable for whoever will be sitting up here to discuss, then that's something that we can bring up now.
I think I would like to see more collaboration with the City of Newark in terms of Manufacturing Week. I think that it would give a great opportunity for us to maybe start a program with the city and encourage students and also the local manufacturers in Newark to be able to have students come and intern for the week or some sort of shadowing program so that students could have that opportunity just to see outside of high school and in the classroom what a business structure or manufacturing business looks like from that point of view. Thank you.
One of the things I would like to add is we are actually working very closely in collaboration with the police department on our Run, Hide, Fight. And so I think to do a presentation in the near future on that as to what we're doing for training in collaboration with our police department might be a nice update for everybody here. It's exciting.
Would that make sense to do, as looking at our future meeting, to do kind of it more at the end of the school year? I know I'm anticipating a update now that we've been able to bring back the school resource officer, and just an update on how that's going. And it makes sense for me at least to at least wait out the year to see get ourselves in a position where we can say, hey, this is how it's going. This is if we need to make improvements, to make improvements there, and not to rush to any kind of decision making.
Yeah, I think at this point we're just in the process of getting ready to go out and go do training at all of our school sites. So just to make an awareness and to make you and the community aware.
So I think if we can do that in June and have just a longer, hopefully very positive update from our police department on the collaboration that's happening there. Anything else? Then we'll get agenda item F2, which is our future meeting dates for next year, which will be January 27, April 28, June 23, and October 27. Before we close, I'd just like to thank Councilmember Carrazzo for your time here and heading towards retirement. You've got 2 more council meetings left, and this is your last one of these. So I want to thank you for everything you've done on this board and on the council, always making me smarter. So
I want to say it's been a pleasure. being able to serve. I've enjoyed every single minute of it. It's been a pleasure serving with everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Member Carrizo, for your service to our community and also being a part of the Liaison Committee for all these years. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness and kindness and just collaboration, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And with that, I will close the meeting. It looks like it is 6:33.